Do you want that in, all right? We're going to drop the microphone. With the likes of İlkay Gundogan already in at Manchester City. City are really going for it. I think that's about £100 million spending already. Pep Guardiola.
And interestingly, they apparently beat Barcelona to this signing. Barcelona trying to lure Jesus to the new camp with using Neymar almost as a bit of a bait. Apparently they know each other from back in Brazil. But Jesus has apparently decided to move to the Premier League, and he's decided that Manchester City is the club for him, and he's moving there for £27 million, confirmed today.
Well, Mike mentioned that Jesus and Neymar are friends. I think I've seen something today that they even have the same tattoo. So perhaps a bit of a coup there for Manchester City to prevent Barcelona stepping in on that one. What other transfers are you guys talking about today? Maybe Leicester City bringing in another player. Mike, what do we know about Bartosz Kapustka?
Another 19-year-old, £7.5 million fee. This one is still subject to FA, Premier League and international code. There shouldn't be a problem though. He is actually already with the Leicester squad over in Stockholm. They're playing Barcelona today in the final match of their International Champions Cup. Of course, they've got the Charity Shield, or Community Shield as we're meant to call it, on Sunday at Wembley against Manchester United. So Barcelona tonight, Wednesday, Manchester United on Sunday, and then they're back in Premier League action for the season curtain opener on a week Saturday. Kapustka played 4 out of 5 games for Poland at Euro 2016, just gone, very highly rated. Another winger, which has got some Leicester fans talking online this afternoon. Is he potentially a replacement for Riyad Mahrez? Of course, the talk has been all summer, pretty much from the moment Leicester lifted that Premier League trophy. How many of their star players can they keep? We've seen Kante has already gone to Chelsea. Vardy has signed a new contract, but there was always question marks over Riyad Mahrez. Barcelona have been sniffing around seemingly all summer. It's not yet been resolved. He's been making sort of differing noises all summer through both him and his agent. So if Mahrez is on his way out, then it looks like this Polish winger, 19-year-old, as we say, very highly rated, Bartosz Kapustka, could be the key to replacing him. And they've obviously got faith in him because they've signed him on a 5-year deal.
Well, yeah, I might just step in on Mahrez, because a lot of Arsenal fans on social media are asking me whether Mahrez is a target for Arsenal. Well, whether or not there's any interest there or not, there aren't any talks between the two clubs as yet. So if Arsenal are going to go for Mahrez, you'd presume they'd need to open talks quite soon. We're already into August, and the transfer window is rapidly drawing to a close.
Just
Mike,
another word on
Leicester
Leicester as well. It's worth saying that they are clearly going for strength in depth. Obviously, one of the key reasons that people pointed to for them being so successful last season was that the fact that they didn't have any midweek games. They were out of the FA Cup at the third round stage in a replay to Tottenham. They didn't really do anything in the League Cup, so it was just the Premier League that they could focus on. Obviously, now that they're Premier League champions, they're in the Champions League, and they'll have the domestic cup competitions as well, and all the extra scrutiny that comes with being champions. So Claudio Ranieri, yes, he's lost one of his best players, arguably in Kante, but this signing today, Kapustka, is his 5th summer signing, and you wouldn't bet against more coming to the King Power before the end of it. So Kapustka joins the likes of Luis Hernandez, a Spanish defender, to join the likes of Wes Morgan and Robert Huth in that centre of defence. There's the French midfielder Nampelu Mende, who could well be a like-for-like replacement for Kante. We wait and see. There's the Nigerian forward Ahmed Musa, who they've brought in, and the goalkeeper Robert Zähler. He's a German goalkeeper, very highly rated, under 21 international. So now with Kapustka on top of that, that's 5 signings already coming to the East Midlands, and as we say, almost certainly some more before the end of August.
Well, you mentioned Kante going into Chelsea, a high-profile departure from Leicester and a high-profile arrival, of course, at Chelsea. But one player who has left Chelsea, that's been confirmed today, is Mohamed Salah. Salah joining Roma, I think, where he spent last season on loan, Mike.
Yeah.
Remember to keep your questions coming on this BBC Sport Facebook Live. We're with Mike Williams from the BBC World Service. Mohamed Salah.
Never really hit it off, did he, at Chelsea? Very highly rated. I think he came from Basel initially when Chelsea brought him in back in 2013-14 season, but only started 13 games for Chelsea in the Premier League all up. He was soon shipped out to Fiorentina initially on loan for the rest of that season. He then went to Roma and spent the whole of last season on loan at Roma, and Antonio Conte coming to Chelsea and obviously decided that Salah is surplus to his requirements, so Roma had first refusal on his signature, and they've taken that up today, and he has moved to Roma, 24-year-old, as we say, on a permanent deal, so no more Mohamed Salah.
A reminder, we're on the BBC Sport Facebook page with another one of our Facebook Lives here at the BBC Sports Centre in Salford. As we're preparing for the Olympics, you'll see very different decor around the place at the moment. With the Olympics starting, well, they've already started today with the women's football getting underway in the Olympic Stadium, and then of course the opening ceremony on Friday night with the action fully getting underway on Saturday morning. A bit more football chat for you then. A couple of big transfers on the domestic front in England. Ross McCormack, could he be on the verge of leaving Fulham for £12 million to join Aston Villa? Championship club to another championship club, of course. And also Mohamed Diame dropping down from the Premier League to the Championship by leaving Hull City and going to Newcastle United. What is going on there, Mike? That's a bit of a strange one.
Hull just seem in disarray, don't they? There's discontent between the fans and the ownership over all such things as the naming, of course, of the club itself. Ticket prices are a real bone of contention at the KC at the moment because they're not allowing concessions for likes of pensioners and students. Of course, they've got no manager. Steve Bruce walked out a few weeks ago. Yesterday, we heard about the approach through the FAW to try and get Chris Coleman over to Humberside. They swiftly rebuked that. Today, there's talks of Gianfranco Zola maybe taking over at the KC, but still no word on that front with the Premier League less than 10 days away from starting. And yeah, Mo Diame today, as you say, dropping down the league, the player who scored the winner in that 1-0 win in the playoff final against Sheffield Wednesday back in May. He has now left KC Stadium and gone to Newcastle, and that would surely, you would think, just looking ahead to the Championship season, only bolster Newcastle's tags as favourites to win that league. Surely anything other than first place for Newcastle in that league. You know, they brought the likes of Dwight Gale in there as well. You know, you would think Newcastle under Rafa Benitez, steady stewardship there would surely see them as number one. And just on Ross McCormack, who you say, I don't think you would have found many people saying that when Fulham bought Ross McCormack for £11 million from Leeds, that they would then sell him on for a profit, because he's no spring chicken. Of course, he was decent at Leeds, but hasn't really done much at Fulham. But clearly, Roberto Di Matteo at Aston Villa has been given money by the new ownership to go all out, which is surprising because I've seen quite a few pundits, again, in the lead up to the new EFL season, predicting that Aston Villa aren't really going to pull up too many trees in the Championship and could probably end up around about mid-table because they sunk like a stone from the Premier League last year. But it looks like that if they are bringing in the likes of Ross McCormack for big money, then they could defy some of the critics wrong and maybe make a charge for promotion at the first attempt. We shall see.
Very interesting seeing Roberto Di Matteo and Steve Clarke, of course, his assistant, using their contacts around the game, dipping into the Championship for players to try and get themselves back up to the Premier League. Paul, if there are any questions, feel free to throw them our way. We're still with Mike Williams from the BBC World Service, and we're going to move this on to one of your favourite subjects I found in the Facebook Lives, and that is Paul Pogba. What is the latest on that front? The last we heard, it seemed he was on the verge of being confirmed as a Manchester United signing, but the days have ticked on. There have been rumours on social media that he may be staying at Juventus. What's the situation as we know it now, Mike? It just seems the story that never ends.
David, young as you are a veteran of these transfer windows, and you know that there is one story that always dominates and rumbles on, and you would not bet against this one going right to the wire, this being a deadline day, 10 minutes to 11 signing, just to build up the drama. We thought that could be Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who was sort of teasing us all summer in the build-up to the Euros and then throughout France, but that was sorted out relatively quickly. He's now a Manchester United player. Odds are that Paul Pogba will also be a Manchester United player come the end of the transfer window, but how soon this is going to be resolved is still so much up in the air. Pogba himself teasing perhaps a little bit. There was some quotes attributed to him earlier on the wires suggesting that he might stay at Juventus after all. I'd say that is still a bit of a long shot. We see today that Juventus are already trying to bring in the Zenit St. Petersburg midfielder Axel Witsel as a potential like-for-like replacement for Pogba. So it looks like Pogba is on his way out of Serie A. Manchester United, by far the most likely destination that he's heading for that world record-breaking price tag of £100 million. But Pogba, it seems, staying tight-lipped. He's actually in the States at the moment. Earlier, he released a video on Twitter. You might have seen this. I think it was late last night or early this morning of him kickboxing, kickbox training with his trainer, presumably over in New York City. I think he's at the moment on holiday, so taking a break, a vacation, but still training hard. If you watch this video, his trainer takes a real pounding. Because I mean, the size of Pogba, you wouldn't mess with him, would you?
It makes you think that what sort of potential injury you could pick up before becoming the world record. Losing a world record signing because you injure yourself kickboxing.
From a kickboxing. Well, we saw Alistair Cooke in the build-up to the third test at Edgbaston injured himself playing football. Thankfully, he managed to get himself out today. I think was out for 42 earlier in the first test. But Paul Pogba picking up a kickboxing injury, perhaps to rule him out for the first part of the season. That would knock a bit off that world record price tag, as you say. That's a whole other debate. Comical sporting injuries by footballers. We could go on for a long time on that.
Well, we'll bring this Facebook Live chat towards an end with a couple of final points. A lot of you have been asking about Arsenal transfers. We mentioned one of them just before. Mahrez, is there anything there? Certainly no talks between the clubs yet. There's also a lot of rumours around Alexander Lacazette at Marseille. Well, sorry, Lyon, I beg your pardon. And he, sort of word coming out of Lyon is that they are not willing to sell Lacazette. But will Arsenal go in with a much bigger bid than they posted, I think, around June time? Well, that one we'll have to wait and see on. Also, Julian Draxler. You mentioned, Mike, Axel Witsel possibly being a transfer target for Juventus, but they're also said to be keen on Julian Draxler if he is to leave Wolfsburg. Also, Mustafi, the centre-half, the German centre-half at Valencia, rumours building that Arsenal are interested in him. I think there is some interest there, but certainly no talks have taken place just yet. The Premier League as a whole so far has seen a spending an outlay of around 551 million pounds. What's the world view on what's going on in the Premier League at the moment? It just really seems exorbitant.
Well, they look on with avaricious eyes, David. Obviously, they know that the Premier League is by far the richest league in the world. There's an argument, I think, to be had on whether it's the best and most entertaining league in the world, but it's certainly the richest, and that is only going to increase because this is the season where we see the launch of the new domestic TV deal worth 5.6 billion, I believe, over the course of 3 seasons through what Sky and BT have paid, and that's just from domestic rights. They add on another couple of billion when you consider international rights. So it's a huge bounty available to all clubs over the 3 seasons. It makes things like relegation that much more important for clubs. And yeah, the rest of Europe can only look on very enviously and with a bit of fear when it comes to their prized assets, because they know that really money is no option for Premier League clubs, most of them, when they come shopping for some of their best assets.
Yeah, and perhaps having seen players like Gareth Bale and Cristiano Ronaldo leave, does that up the imperative for a club like Manchester United and the Premier League as a whole to try and get a player like Paul Pogba, one of the best players in the world at the moment, most highly sought after players at the very least, trying to bring him over, and that price tag almost illuminates the Premier League even more, whether it's right or wrong.
It's big money, isn't it? It's big money for big names. And yes, you could argue, whilst the Premier League might be the richest league in the world at the moment, if you were to name the top 5 footballers in Europe, Gareth Bale, Cristiano Ronaldo, Luis Suarez, Neymar, there's 4 of them. Where do they all play? Spain. So yeah, in terms of Hollywood names, star attractions, perhaps the Premier League is lacking. Of course, there are huge names still, like Wayne Rooney. He's got his testimonial this evening just down the road at Old Trafford. And there are other big names in the Premier League, the likes of Eden Hazard at Chelsea, and of course plenty of others. Mesut Ozil at Arsenal, just thinking off the top of my head here. But yeah, in terms of huge global names, they're still in Spain at the moment. And yeah, like you say, getting Pogba to the Premier League will sell shirts, it will get more back pages, and that's maybe what the Premier League are now targeting. But of course, it all costs money, and that's only going to drive the price up.
Absolutely. Mike, it's a pleasure to speak to you today. Mike Williams, working for the BBC World Service. That's all from the latest Facebook Live. We'll be back here with plenty more over a range of sports, and no doubt lots of transfer chat as the month goes on towards transfer deadline day. Hope you've enjoyed that. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.